Greetings, everyone. This is Melek Shalamah of Melek Shalamah Capital LLC. I've been away from the desk for a minute, and today is my first day back at the desk. So we're going to jump into this video and do some macro analysis. So first off, I'm going to just point out that for me, today is a divergence, risk-on bias sentiment type of day, right? So the risk-on bias comes from the gap up. We have a gap up open, and the divergence comes from other macro elements such as other markets that are not really in correlation or supporting the upward movement or the risk on bias, right? So let's jump into right. So I'm a Wyckoff trader. I use the Wyckoff theory. Right here I have labeled, it's basically a distribution structure, right? Now, the thing about a distribution structure in an uptrend, it could always turn into like reaccumulation, right? Which is just a continuation, right? So there's profit taking happening, and basically the buyers will just buy the dip and it'll keep going, right? So this is just basically, if it's a reaccumulation, they're taking profit, they come in heavy on the buy side and they might push it further. Now, if it's a actual distribution, it's gonna break down below this automatic reaction level and continue distributing to the downside, right? So what we have evidence of today is that this might be negating the distribution structure and kind of suggesting reaccumulation, right? So what we have here is the preliminary supply. This is kind of like the first hint of like sellers trying to come into the market on the upward swing, right? After we have this little pullback here after the preliminary supply at around 73.6325. We have the buying climax right up here at 76.0250. We have the automatic reaction down here at 74.1675. We have the uptrust at 76.9475, and then we have this major sign of weakness at 72.9475, right? So after all of this happened, we have this gap up open today, right? So we gapped up from this previous close. We open here, and this is the current market pushing up here. So we're pushing above this. This was like this was gonna be a LPSY, lowest point of supply, but now that we have the breakout of that, this is no longer considered a LPSY because it broke out, right? So what we could be trying to go for is a uptrust after distribution, right? So it's either uptrust after distribution, we go up here, we start having this same kind of price action as this, we come back into the range and distribute, or it's a breakout, retest, and we go, right? That's the reaccumulation, right? So let's see, let's go over to Bookmap. All right, so this is the ETH open. We gapped up, we have immediate profit taken, sorry, right? So we push up out of the profit taken, buyers take control, especially around this area right here at 75.50, right? Buyers start to take control, heavy buying into this liquidity here at 75.9675. So London's open, so that's the Asian session, right? So London's open is around 3 o'clock, 3 a.m., right? So we have a little profit taken. The volume point of control migrates to the upside. We have buyers holding it. It breaks a little bit. We come back, we regain, we kind of rotate here. London kind of rotates right into the RTH session, right? So we're in the RTH session, and what I'm looking for now is either what I call a Nile Banks strategy. And let me just bring this across here real quick. So these are the criteria for my Nile Banks strategy, and basically it's a low volume retest of Vwap after strong buying at the open, right, for a continuation play. So let's see, let's open this up a little bit. All right. All right, so we have heavy institutional buyers coming in here. 3 big bubbles, right? Buy bubbles. 1107 contracts, delta, right? So when I say delta, right, this is not only 1107 contracts being distributed here or transacted, right? This is just the amount of buyers that overwhelm the sellers. Really and truly, this is about, in all the contracts here, it would be probably like about 15,000, I think, right? So institutions are buying, and let's see where we have this first setup here. Now, I'm really not going to take this first setup here for a Nile Banks strategy at 15 minutes in, right? Or let's say 10 minutes into the session, right? We still have heavy selling. This I wouldn't consider this a low volume retracement because there is heavy volume still, right? Because it's the beginning of the session, it's heavy volume. Can't really trust this as a low volume retracement, right? Because you can see after this heavy buying here, we still have steady volume coming into the market, right? Even though there's even though, let's say we're getting the retest of Vwap, this volume here is a little too much to actually take this trade. So what happens if I take this trade here, because this is one of the criterias where, let's say we get a test of Vwap, we get absorption, we get a buyer stepping in, I could step in here, buy with the buyer, put my stop under here. Well, usually I have 3 points, a 3-point stop. So let's see, that will be 7609, right? So my stop could be about 7606. So that would be a good setup, right? I would have survived this trade, but you could see it doesn't really go, right? So the trade is supposed to just go to the upside after the retest of Vwap. So we get this consolidation, it comes back, a retest Vwap. This could possibly be another entry, but still a little too early. This is 15 minutes in. I decided to step back a little bit, let that play out. But this was a decent entry as well, right, for the Nile Banks. So didn't take those entries, let the buyers go to the upside. We ran into this liquidity here. We're actually running into the weekly floor pivot R1, which is one of my resistance levels for like short plays and my Black Sun strategy. 76.18.25 is the level. We get a little resistance there, a little take profit. You see the liquidity is kind of bunched up around here as well, right, on the offer. So we're pushing up to the upside. The uptrend is intact. We start to get a little retracement here back to this first upper deviation, and this is where we're getting another retest of Vwap. Now, this is too much volume to retest Vwap for me in this setup, right? Because even though in hindsight we could see that this bias came in here, this could easily just break down to this liquidity level here, right? So that's not an A+ setup for me, so I passed on that as well. We push up to the first upper deviation, a little above that. Sellers start to take control, and this is where we get sellers really coming in to break down Vwap, get to this liquidity levels here around 676.0575, and just in this zone right here, right? But we're actually retesting the first lower deviation. So we get heavy selling here, and at this point, this is, to me, this is not looking like a continuation play. I'm not gonna step in front of these sellers here when we start to reclaim Vwap, right? Because we already, basically the trade has been negated for me, right? Because we broke through Vwap. We're not supposed to break through Vwap if we have heavy buyers, right? Or if buyers are supporting the price to make a real push to the upside and have a trend day. This is not what I'm looking for here, right? So buyers, early buyers are getting trapped here. They're getting stopped out and stuff like that. So Vwap buyers, which is kind of in kin to my strategy as well, they're trying to step in here, but they're getting washed, right? It's coming back to first lower deviation. We get buyers again. VWAP break. So VWAP is not holding at the moment, right? Now we come up to around 1044, and this is where the selling really starts to dry up. So we could look at this as basically, this is the low volume selling retracement, right? After these big buyers take control, this is the low volume sellers. But at this point, for me, I've already negated the A plus setup as soon as the market did this, right? So I'm no longer really looking for a trade, but in the criteria of the trade, this could be an entry around here. Like when it breaks above VWAP, let's say this is what, 7614, a 3-point stop, right? Put me somewhere around here. So that I probably could have survived that trade, but still not really taking that kind of setup with this kind of selling involved, right? So eventually this could be a entry right here. Didn't take that entry, and the market pushes up from that point. So for me, what I'm trying to say is this: every setup, I'm not going to try and take every setup like I did before. Before I was really kind of really trying to chase my setups and my entries and stuff like that. So I'm really trying to be a little more conservative. Well, not trying to be, I'm more conservative. I want my A plus setups, right? Because those B plus and B minus setups usually just take money from you, and the A plus setup is just, in a probabilities way of thinking, is just a way better way to run this kind of business, or to interact with the market. You need to have A plus setups to actually keep a consistent, like, P&L, you know what I'm saying? Like, to keep your P&L consistently rising with just a little pullbacks. So that's why I basically, like, just stood down on this trade, right? So we got a nice, like, let's say I took this trade here, right, at around 1350. Could have gotten up to like a nice little 10 points out of that trade, possibly even gotten to this level at even like around here, right, where all these big buyers are, right? So the setup is valid, but it wasn't an A plus setup for me. So that's my Nile Banks strategy. I'll be documenting this strategy a lot more as, you know, the market kind of changes into this bullish kind of posture. I'm expecting it to actually make that that run to the upside, that uptrust after distribution. So if it doesn't start rejecting from this level here, like say this just becomes a test and we start breaking down, right? If I see that, then we'll start switching up strategies and looking for the more black sun strategy, where I'm looking for basically it's just a retracement and you sell these levels here, right? So that's what I'll be looking for continuation to the bullish side to create that uptrust after distribution, or a break above the creek, right? These are Wyckoff terms, and it's basically a break above this level here, retest, you know, jump across the creek and all that. So we're looking for this continuation of the buyers to take it to the upside and see what happens around these levels, if it's going to retrace or not, or if it's going to be continuation and buyers, you know, the market is just going to run away from here. So yeah, that's my my little trade breakdown. Why I stood down from this trade is called the Nile Banks Strategy. Just to go over, it's just to go over the criteria here. Let's see. The higher time frame has to be in a phase D or phase E markup, right? So that's another Wyckoff term, where in this kind of markup phase, it's basically bullish, right? So reaccumulation structure, which is basically what we have on the higher time frame, right? That's a reaccumulation structure because it's pushing out of it right now, right? We won't know exactly what it is until it fully forms. So price must be above value area high at the RTH open. We had a gap up open. We were way above value area high. And let's see. VWAP must be below price. So all of that was in play. Let's bring it back. Right, so price was above VWAP, coming back to test VWAP, right? Price action is holding above Camarilla R3. So all of this activity is supposed to be happening above Camarilla R3. Camarilla R3 is all the way down here at 75, 24, 25. So we're good to go with that. Let's see. Trade location, VWAP or +1 VWAP. Right, so we had the setups here at VWAP. We didn't really have any setups at +1 VWAP. Let's take a look here. No real retest at +1 VWAP. We have a breakout, but this is not a retest of +1 VWAP. So that setup was never present, but we had the retest of VWAP, right? So let's see here. Retracement criteria: low volume sell delta, absorption, no major sell sweeps, iceberg buyers. We did not get that, right? So we had heavy selling volume into VWAP. So that just, let's see what I put that as a 3. That was a 3 rating for me, right? So that basically killed the trade because the average only came up to 7.7, and that's nowhere near A plus setup. A plus setup is supposed to be something like that, right? 8.9, we push that up to around 8, and you have a 9.4 trade, right? So that's like more like a A plus setup, right? So yeah, and these are just trade entry kind of criterias, but basically that's the Nile Banks strategy. All right, here also is Melek Shalamah. I hope you all enjoyed the breakdown. I'm gonna do more of these and just keeping it going. All right, y'all trade safe and stay blessed.